So, this morning's lesson is about an epiphany. And I'm not in my right place yet. I'll get there. Okay, I'm in my right place. Okay, so I just went to, the High Holy Place Wikipedia and put in the word epiphany. And it said the manifestation of Christ to Gentiles as represented by the Magi, Matthew 2, 1 through 12. It says the festival commemorating the Epiphany on January 6th. It also says a manifestation of a divine or supernatural being. But the one I thought that I was talking about is a moment of sudden revelation or insight. But there's a little bit of work that is required to have a moment of sudden revelation or insight. So we think of the manger as being a wood box that's held together by bolts. However, a couple thousand years ago, that's not quite how they were able to create those. We could just start with the bolts. There was nothing actually to fasten that kind of stuff together. So in the birth of Jesus' time, mangers were made out of rock. And they chiseled the space to put the hay, to feed the livestock. They chiseled that out. Now, the really cool part about us preparing for the birth of a new idea, because we are in a New Thought church, so Christ consciousness is already within us. Our journey is to host or create a space that welcomes that kind of wisdom or guidance or revelation or truth. And some of us, by the time we've gotten here, actually might have hearts that are made of stone. And that in order to receive that divine wisdom, that grace, that gift, there is some chiseling out that is opening the space to welcome a new idea, to welcome love, to welcome harmony. So I believe that Santa Claus is the spirit of giving that lives in our hearts. When my children got to be just about the age, there are 3 of them, they're old people now, which is frightening. When they got to be the age where like the Santa Claus story was beginning to sort of maybe move into mythical, I said, "Oh, do you believe in Santa Claus?" And somebody started to answer, and I said, "Wait a minute, let me tell you what I think it is, okay? And then you can tell me whether you believe or not." I said, "I believe it's the spirit of giving that lives in your heart. And if you don't believe, that guy doesn't have to come down the chimney and leave you anything." They said, "I believe, I believe, I believe." Well, we hadn't found our way to church yet, and so that was kind of that spirit that moves in us, that gives us understanding and wisdom before. So it's like being receptive. It's hard for us to look in our hearts and say, it's made of stone. It's hard for us to look at our resentments and think that that is the life that we have cast for ourselves, our resentments. Einstein said, it's really basic. You either think the world is friendly or you do not. And everything about your life is spinning on that decision. Is it friendly or is it not? So if your heart is hard, that's based on this is not a friendly universe. If you are chiseling out the space for the birth of divinity, for the birth of peace, for the birth of sharing and giving and being in love with life, that is not a forgiveness process. That is a forgiveness practice that we continue. When we find something in that space that doesn't belong there, that isn't loving, that isn't empowering, we take that out and hold the space open for good, for love, for wisdom. So, because it said that it was about the Magi, So I went to the Bible to read, and I haven't done very much in the past with the wise men. So the wise men from the East, and this is Schuler's Possibility Thinker's Bible. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard these things, he was troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all of the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. So they said to him, "In Bethlehem, for thus it is written by the prophet." Then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search diligently for the young child. And when you have found him, bring back word to me that I may come and worship him also." When they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star, which they had seen in the east, went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. And they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when he had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they parted for their own country another way. So first of all, let's take magi. Magi is a word for magic, for magicians, more than one. Now, what we today think of a magician is not what we would think of the wise men. So who was a magician 2,000 years ago? They were priests. They were a high order of priestly people who had not only prayer and insight, but they also had herbs and medicinal treatment. They knew how to heal. And so when we're talking about the wise men or the magi, and when we're talking about three, that's the Trinity. So anything that comes in a three is Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Is God the masculine, God the feminine, God its creation, the child? Where we are talking about three, we are talking about a wholeness. So these men, so it even says in the Bible that Herod gathered the priests to talk about this, what was being forecast. When the Magi actually took frankincense, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So if you just look at biblical interpretation of what, again, those three substances are, you get all kinds of things. But if you go to Wikipedia and you just look up gold, it will eventually get to where it's talking about the Magi bringing gold. And it talks about the solid, the strength, the bounty that is in the earth at all times. And so what they blessed the baby with gold, was the minerals, the solid, what is in life that is good in life that can be counted on, that will provide for life. Frankincense is actually a incense, and it was used in sacred ceremonies. So they took the baby, a piece of incense which symbolized that he would have the power of sacred ceremony over people. They also, and not only that, but frankincense has been around for 5,000 years and has been in the past one of the most highly traded and expensive purchases. So not only did they give him something that showed that he would have power over ceremony, they also gave him something that if all else failed, he probably could sell. a little endowment. Gold, a little endowment. If you go to myrrh and you look up what myrrh today is put into some cleaning things, some mouthwashes and toothpastes. But it's actually for ligament. It's actually a balm. It's actually, and probably in that time, it was like giving somebody maybe a first aid kit. In times when maybe it would be hard to get your hands on a first aid kit. It was something that you used to treat any kind of ailment. It's used for colds, it's used for asthma, it's used for breathing challenges, and it's also used today for cancer. So, they gave him something that he could use. All three things. They weren't magic people, they were spiritual people. And when they saw him, they knew by the Bible's interpretation, they knew that this was indeed a special, special person. Now, through all of history, we have, if you want to say that somebody is exceptional, you say that he is of a virgin birth. What that means is that that person is pure. That person is holy and sacred. So historically, we have virgin births that come from all different cultures. And what it's really saying is that is the seal of someone that is indeed special, has been called for a divine purpose. So I didn't know very much. I love Charles Fillmore's Metaphysical Bible. And just like our Bible, I only ever look in here at the things that I want to look at, and so I don't look at the things that I don't want to look at. And there are a few differences in unity from religious science, and because right now we are independent, we can be anything that we want. A couple of things that are really clearly different are that Charles Fillmore believed in reincarnation. And a lot of what he is talking about, a lot of the way his doctrine came forth was through the idea of reincarnation. And Ernest Holmes said, who is the founder of New Thought, said, you can believe the way that you are called to believe. He also, in a tongue-in-cheek way, said, and maybe it's really done unto you as you believe, as Jesus taught. So if you believe in hell, then you might have to have that experience. If you believe in purgatory, that one might be up for you too. If you believe in heaven, there might be angels that meet you on the other side. He didn't say that he did or didn't believe in reincarnation. He did say, it's kind of an egocentric thought to think that we would just keep coming back and going around and around the same old subjects here on planet Earth. And he said, because he taught about the universe and he taught about the cosmos, he said he's pretty sure that there was life as energy in other expressions in other places. And so to reincarnate and keep coming back to Earth, he considered to be a rather limiting thought. Charles Fillmore, not so much. So if Charles is here today, I welcome you. Thank you for choosing church. So I went to his Metaphysical Bible interpretation because first I went and I looked up the wise men. And it gets quite a bit into reincarnation. But it has an interesting idea. The stored up resources of the soul. The stored up resources of the soul, which rise to the surface when its depths are stirred with a great spiritual revelation. They are the inner realms of consciousness that, like books of life, have kept the records of past lives and held them in reserve for the great day when the soul would receive the supreme ego, Jesus. These wise men represent the wisdom that is carried within the soul from previous incarnations. Okay, I'll say that one again because that's really what he has just said. These wise men represent the wisdom that is carried within the soul from previous incarnations. The East represents the within, man's inner consciousness. They bring gifts to the Christ child, the inner resources of spirit, which are open to the Christ mind. Gold represents beauty of spirit. Gold represents riches of spirit, frankincense, the beauty of spirit, and myrrh, the eternity of spirit. Now, I'm so grateful that I didn't write this book. Can you imagine? He has interpreted all the terms in the Bible metaphysically. And while I want to believe every single thing that I read in print, I have to come to the place that he had his own perspective and knowledge and was able to share that and illuminate us to what he saw. But I think it's interesting how he got the, eternity of myrrh is eternity of spirit, because if we heal, we live longer, or we live a healthier life. Gold being the riches, and frankincense being beauty. So ceremony and incense is the beauty part of that. The last part he says is the star that the wise men saw in the east represents intuition. The wise men were guided by intuition. Stars represent subjective and not fully understood guiding light. Okay, that's really cool. Here we're going to get to our epiphany, people. That is that a star is that intuition. It's that light that calls you out of what you know to what is longing to be expressed through you. It's that, so when the guiding light led them to the birth of Christ, if we follow the guiding light of intuition, we are being led to the epiphany of peace, of love that lives in our heart, of giving that is the spirit of this time of year. So that one wasn't as good as this is. And this will be the last one that I do. This is stars. Revelations of truth that are as yet remote. The human mind cannot conceive the wonders and immensity of a universe of stars in the heavens. Stars are sometimes likened to psychic thoughts. The star that points the way for the wise men to find Jesus was in the east. It symbolizes our inner conviction of our divine sonship. This is developed in some who are coming. Let's make sure I didn't skip a page here. This is developed in some who are coming out of the material, carnal animal mind to a higher man. So the whole journey in life is the journey from what we see in the world, what we expect in the world, what we want out of the world, to that higher idea that I can be in the world and not of the world. Because the love of God isn't about my opinion or how I think things should be. The love of God is not a response. The love of God, which resides in each of us, is our gift to give. And so the epiphany, what any one of us would want to give into celebration at this time of year, is the awakening of that truth, the awakening of that greater good, the awakening of this is a precious time of year, and everything around me, the lights, the colors, the carols, are calling me to know that this life is a blessing, that I have been put here not by accident but on purpose, that I'm celebrating, yes, the birth of an idea that a master teacher brought to us that said, don't you know who you are? Don't you know what you can do? Don't you know that these things and greater things? We so often want to think that a miracle is something that nobody can do, only he could do. It's walking on water. It's changing water to wine. It's doing something that's impossible to do. When the truth is that miracles are moments where God reveals itself as love and wisdom, peace and grace, and they are every day. They are every day. So when I was flying to Florida, I had prepared to be on the airplane and to make Christmas presents. And the Christmas presents that I've been working on are coasters. And it takes me about 45 minutes to make a coaster, which is kind of exciting for me because then I can make a whole little stack of coasters for somebody. And because I'm a crazy person who likes to make concentric circles, and I actually don't just start with, some of them have really gotten quite large. They're called doilies, and they're all over my house. And as I jokingly say, nobody really wants a doily, but people are liking coasters, and I can stop before I obsess and just keep going on and on. So I get it to LAX, and I'm waiting for I get to be dropped off at LAX, and I make the decision that the tiny pair of scissors that I have that are going to allow me to cut my thread probably aren't going to make it all the way to Florida with me. So I take them out and drop them in the cup holder in the car. So then I get in to wait for my airplane, and I get just about to the point where I would like my little scissors, and they're in the car. So I think to myself, for sure, this woman that I've already talked to several times at the counter, who is sort of giving me that gruff and rough one-line response to my every needy thing, I go to the third time to her. I'm sure that they've got a pair of scissors behind in that counter. And I say, could you just cut this piece of thread for me? She said, no scissors are allowed in the airport. I said, but I just wanted to cut this little piece of thread here. She said, well, let me think. Well, she said, I bet these keys will do. So I hold it taut, and she saws them with the keys, and sure enough, pop, I got one coaster. She says, what is that? I said, it's a coaster. Oh. I said, you may have it. She started to cry. She said, this is no damn coaster. I am going to keep this forever. This is a precious thing that you have made and given me today. I'm going to appreciate it and respect it. I'm not going to put my cup on it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I was like, okay, so there's my one coaster in this trip. And that moment was what I think the holidays are about. And it's simple. They're simple. They're every moment to moment, opportunities where you get to look inside of yourself and ask what you have come to give, and you get to give it. I asked the first year I got a hold of the idea that it was much more fun to ask children, what'd you give than what did you get? I asked this little boy, what did you give? What was the greatest gift that you got to give? He said, I gave my stepfather a size 56 pair of underwear. I said, oh, that's the gift you came to give. It was so good, he said. And you could see that little person did not think of what he had gotten. He thought of what he came to give. All of us have the invitation at this precious time of year to go forth and look at what have you come to give. There's a light inside of you. There's an epiphany longing to dawn within you. You will only find the birth of those amazing things in a heart that is open with space to receive. God bless you for choosing church. And so we take this moment and turn within, going forth today to do all the things we have to do, knowing it's a busy time of year, knowing that there's lots of energy all around us. And we have the invitation to step inside, to find peace and love, the birth of Christ consciousness in the center of our being, and to know that from here, when we proceed blessing, being grateful, being humbled, recognizing each of us are a guest in God's house. At this precious time of year, when we are guests in God's house, let us look with childlike wonder as the colors and the lights unfold before us. Let us see in every creche, in every manger scene, the birth of infinite possibility for peace. And when we see the stars, let us remember we too are being called forth to be greater, to be in gratitude, to be in surrender and acceptance, to live in love. Santa Claus has come to live in our hearts. Let us open our hearts and welcome the spirit of giving that lives within. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.